Johnson, and I've decided to do a little lecture on what is engineering, because you probably don't think about that too much. I've given a couple of talks on this, and the reason I became interested in it was because I was analyzing the articles in these journals. This is the Transactions of the American Institute of Mining Engineers, which goes back to about 1870 or 1880. And I noticed in the articles that after the author's name, there were initials that I didn't recognize, like EM or AM, FGS, FRS. And I didn't know where these degree designations came from. I didn't know if it was colleges. I also noticed that some of the people who I knew were college professors did not list any degree after their name at all, and some of them also listed professor separately. So I could tell that the degrees were different from what we had now, so I wanted to find out why. As it turns out, at the beginning, at the time that during the Industrial Revolution, when the field of engineering was emerging, the professional associations grew strong, and they were the ones who granted the right to bear these initials after your name. The American Society of Civil Engineers was first. And the reason that they had to do this was because this is how people traded information in those days. They got together by railroads, and they had conferences, and they read papers, and they shared knowledge. And the engineering schools were just starting to get off the ground. So in 1862, there were only 6. And 10 years later, after the Civil War, there were 70. So as you can see, it was really taking off. It was very difficult to get one of these to fulfill the requirements for, say, the American Society for Civil Engineering. You had to have been a superintendent for 5 years, and if you had a college diploma, it was only equal to 2 years of the service. These are some of the earliest engineering and scientific schools that emerged in the United States. And it was actually a very radical thing for colleges at that time. Harvard actually didn't want Lawrence Scientific School there because it was they thought that science was not a subject worth teaching in an academic environment. They were still teaching Greek and Latin. Early engineering colleges, as you can see, the number went up very rapidly. The earliest was West Point, then RPI. These are just some of them. There were other smaller ones too. And then the most important of all, of course, NJIT. And that's the end of this little paper, except to say that what changed the degree granting system was probably about 20 years of fighting in the newspapers, during meetings, between the professional associations and the colleges. And also the colleges just had to grow so that there were enough, then they could produce enough engineers to take over the degree granting rights. And that happened in about 1905. So that's the end of this little lecture, and I hope it uploads well. Thank you for your time.